Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this one, I wanted to quickly touch base on Azure Private DNS and how you can configure this one. Now, the benefit of having a private DNS on Azure, it gives you secure and reliable name resolution. And once you configure a private DNS, you can use the name resolution within the same virtual network. You can use that across multiple virtual networks. You can do it for the same region and over and also for other regions as well, and even across subscriptions. Okay, and you need to specify allowed vnets when you configure the private DNS, and you do that. So there are two components that you will see that we're going to configure. One is called the resolution virtual network. Okay, this is where you're going to specify, okay, these are the virtual networks where I'm going to let those virtual network to resolve the DNS records, DNS names. Okay, and then there is something else that is called the registration virtual network. If we configure a registration virtual network, what will happen? Say you add a new virtual machine to this network, it will automatically add the necessary DNS record for the machine in your DNS record, in your private DNS record. When you delete, it will delete automatically. So the management is going to be very, very minimal. So those are the benefits. So really what we'll try to do, we'll try to create a network, then create some subnet, create a private DNS zone, and then put some VMs and test out if everything is working properly. Now again, this is for a private DNS zone. That is the topic for the day. We'll cover the public DNS in another video, maybe in the next one. All right. So what I'll do, I'm actually going to open up and go to our Azure documentation, and I'm going to provide this link that you have if you do a Google search on quick start Azure Private DNS Zone using Azure portal. You come to this. Now note that there are other ways to do this job as well. You can always use your PowerShells or the Azure CLI to do the job. But for the lab, what we are going to do, we are going to create a private DNS zone. Okay. So in this lab, they're saying, okay, create a private DNS zone, private.contoso.com, and then we're gonna in a resource group, my Azure resource group. So that's pretty simple. So just like any other resource deployment, okay, we are gonna stay in Azure, and here we're gonna start and do private DNS zone. See, it showed up. So I'm gonna click on this and hit create, and in this one I'm gonna say create new, and over here let's see what is the DNS zone, I mean resource group. So that is the resource group that we want. So let's just come back over here, provide the resource group name and remove the dot at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna go there. Now what is the name? Okay, so here Azure is using, I mean this document is using private.contoso.com. Why don't we use our own and just say private that cloudsecurity.com? Okay, and then resource group location, we have to provide something, excuse me, we gotta provide a location. Let's see which one, what location is currently being used in this example. So they are using West Central US, so that is fine. We can, I like the East US. I'm just gonna go with the East US and just little deviation from the lab. So again, all we are doing is really creating a DNS zone using this wizard and tag. I don't need this any tag for this particular lab, and just say, yeah, go ahead and create a private DNS for me. So validation is successful. I'm gonna hit create. So it's creating my private cloudsecurity.com. That DNS zone, the deployment is in progress, and usually it does not take very long to create the DNS zone. So we should have it available in any second. So while this deployment is going on, let's see over here, what else do we need to do? So we are done with this particular step, right? Create a private DNS zone. So if we come to the next one, what we have, let's say we need to create and a virtual network. And the thing that we're going to change, we didn't use the West central, so we're gonna stick to the East US zone, and we're gonna use the same resource group. We can also use this same virtual network name and the IP and the subnet name if we like, but the rest we're gonna change it just a little. So here, this is just telling you what are the parameters that you need. Over here is the direction for the creating the virtual network, and if you have created this previously, should be very simple for you. So we'll go create a resource, networking, virtual network. So over here, let's see if it's done. Okay, look at that. Your private DNS is actually deployment is now done. If you open the DNS, this is how it looks like right now. Okay, it's auto registered false. Here you have a TTL 3600. So if you don't know what they are, I'm not going to get into too much detail. ASO is the startup authority, and there are a whole bunch of DNS record set that you can add, and we'll go over some of the different types. And if you click on here, you can see how many different type of DNS records that are supported at the moment for the private DNS. But let's come back to this one in a little bit. So we have not completed our infrastructure yet. So what I'll do, I'll actually go to the resource group next. Okay, in here, what is a resource group? This is a resource group. In this resource group, I'm going to hit create, and this time we are going to create a network. So go to networking, and let's see, virtual network. Here we go, virtual network. I'm going to hit create, and since I was in the resource group, it automatically picked up, here's the resource group. It automatically picked up the resource group of that particular region of that particular resource group. Now is the name. So let's come back over here. Name, enter the virtual network name, which is this. So I'm going to copy this, provide the virtual network name, and then going to the IP address. So we said we're going to use the IP address space 10200. So let's use that and don't use this. So I'm going to provide this, and I'm going to get rid of the other one. Okay, and here, since I have the IP address, I need to create a subnet. You cannot create this without creating a subnet, so you have to create at least one, and the subnet name is going to be my Azure subnet. So over here, what we'll do, you click on add subnet, provide the name of the subnet, and we need the address range, which will be a chunk from the bigger IP space, and that is going to be /24. So let's get that one as well. Come over here, provide this, and to change that to backslash. And I think that's all you need. You don't have to worry about the NAT gateway or services, anything like that. Just hit add. So now we have our virtual network configured. It's going to be deployed in the same resource group. Hit security, just go with the default option. That should be fine. Tags, you don't need to do anything, and at least for the lab you don't need. Now enterprise environment you do. Validation is successful. Now hit create. So that should create my virtual network. Inside the virtual network, it should create a subnet, and all is going to be placed in the same resource group. So if I go to the resource, this is my virtual network. If you look at the address space, this is my address space. If you look at the subnet, there's my subnet. So everything looks good to me right now. Go to overview, go back to the resource real quick, and if you go to the resource, you should now see I have the network, the virtual network available to me. In that same resource group, I have the private cloudsecurity.com, the private DNS zone that we have created. It's also there. And notice that the private DNS is actually a global service. Okay, now coming back to over here, if you're following this, we have really done the create the virtual network subnet uh, right now. And now the next thing we need to do is link the virtual networks. To link the private DNS zone to virtual network, you create a virtual network link. Okay, so what you will have to do, you have to go to the resource group, You have to go to the DNS zone, and on the left panel you see the virtual network link. So over here you gotta go, and then over here you see under settings you have the virtual network links. That's how you are going to link the virtual network that we have created and to this particular private DNS. So the one that we have created, the virtual network, is my Azure VNet. That is what we have created. You need the link name. This is something we need to provide. So let's see what the link name they're asking. It's just my link is what they have asked us to do. So let's follow the lab here. So just call it my link, and we should be good. Let's see what else do we need. Configuration enable auto registration, so that would be nice. So if you can do that, so if you read this setting enables automatic creation of DNS records in the private DNS zone for the virtual machines connected to the virtual network. Excellent, that is exactly what we want. So let's do that, and let's see any other settings. So this one I'm gonna skip, and that's about it. So we just say okay, and that should link this private cloudsecurity.com, that DNS zone. And it's now should, if I refresh this one, it may take just a little bit of time, so it's still linking. Okay, it may take a little bit of time, but it will be here, and this subnet will be linked to this private DNS zone. So the next thing that we need to do is test and make sure that everything is working. So to do that, we had to create couple of at least two virtual machines. Okay, so here what they're saying, okay, let's create a Windows Server 2016 data center, call it myVM01, and just go through the standard process. So let's just go back and look, this deployment is done and this link is now showing up just fine. So I'm just going to go back to the resource group. Okay, and now I'm going to hit create, and 2019 is fine, so that's a modification I'm doing. Instead of 16, I'm just going to create a 2019 data center. Let's follow the naming convention here. So let's go over here, let's create the virtual machine with VM01. STOS is good. I'm going to keep everything the same, call it a student. Let's see. Okay, I got the passwords in here as well. Let's quickly check what else. Public inbound, select allow 3389 for the RDP. Rest and make sure that virtual network is selected, because that is important. That's the network where we are going to use the private DNS. Rest looks pretty straightforward. So over here, what we'll do, public inbound port RDP is open, so that's good. So I should be able to connect the machine over the internet. Disk, no need to change anything. Networking, you do need to change unless this is already selected. So for me, my Azure VNet is the one where I want to deploy, and this is the subnet where I want to deploy as well. So everything looks good in this page, and go to management and boot diagnostic. You can just disable this one, and next would be your advanced. Don't need to do anything. Tags for a lab environment, I don't usually use tags. And now it should go through the validation and it should create this particular virtual machine. Okay, so let's see what happens. It just takes a minute or so to get the validation done. Now the validation is completed. Let's hit create. To create this virtual machine, there is gonna be able to use the private DNS, and as a matter of fact, in our DNS it should automatically add the proper record for this particular virtual machine. Okay, let's see if that happens. So let me going back to this. Now you see that I told you that you need at least two virtual machines. You're gonna do the same thing and create another virtual machine and just call it my VM2. So let's see, the deployment is ongoing. So let's see, just give it a second. And as soon as this is done, let's see, our recording is still going on just fine. Hopefully you can hear me okay. and what's the deploy? It doesn't take very long. That's why I used to stop the videos when the deployment they're going on. But these days, they're so fast that I don't even feel like I need to see it's all done. So in this, I didn't stop this for another reason. Instead of going through the whole process, I can now just click on create another VM right here and easily go to the same page. The another thing you could have done, use the same template to deploy the deploy the VM. So I'm gonna go through the same thing, resource group. We are gonna stick to my Azure resource group, and let's see here. We're gonna use name, password. Okay, I got the password and rest should be same here, no change. Networking, still same network, same subnet, everything looks good. RDP open, management no change. You can disable the boot. Diagnostics, advanced tags, no problem. Then all we need to do at this point is just say, yeah, go ahead and create this virtual machine, and we should be good. Let's see. So it's going through the validation phase now, and validation is successful. Let's create this virtual machine as well. So what we have just done, we have completed this step as well, create the virtual machines. We have just deployed two different virtual machines. Now here it says create an additional DNS record. The following example creates a record with the relative name DB in the DNS zone. In the resource group, the fully qualified name of the record set is set to db.private.contoso.com. This A type. Now, if you don't know anything about DNS, A type, it maps a DNS name like a domain name to an IP address. Okay. If you had if you want to do like a reverse, then you will be using a pointer record where you are gonna use a IP address, and that will map back to a domain name. So first, let's see what happens. So now it looks like this deployment is also done. What I'll do, I'll actually just go to the resource group, and this resource group should now have everything that we need. We have the virtual network, the virtual machine, and one virtual machine got some associated resources, so don't worry about that. So virtual machine 2 is the another one that got deployed. We have the private security, cloud security, so that zone is also available with us right now. So let's just go here and look what happened. Just you see the myvm01 and myvm02 that got added. So the A record, as I said, it takes the host name and it maps to the IP. So the private IP is 10.0.0.4 that must have been assigned to this virtual machine. And for the 02, 10.2.0.5 must have been assigned. Here the TTL is only 10 seconds. Okay, TTL is the time to leave, how long your record is gonna stay in your cache. So it looks like your DNS zone is working just perfectly. So before we do some more testing, let's finish up this one as well. As they said, create a new record, and what we will do, we'll type a new record. We call it a DB. So let's just come over here. Here you can just say record set, and let's see which one. So just we're gonna call it a DB, and I think this one is saying that name DB, and it's a what kind of record for the IP address. Provide the IP address of the VM, and said okay. So I'm just not okay. It's type A. Okay, so it's the type A. So A is good. Everything is good. So this is the one that we want to use because this is the my VM1. Provide the IP address right there. Okay. Now let's come back over here one more time. Make sure we are doing it correctly. So IP address of your VM. It's a record, and fully qualified domain name set to db.private. For us it's going to be cloudsecurity.com. So let's just come over here So fully qualified domain name, it will look like if you put DB, the fully qualified domain name would become db.private.cloudsecurity.com. So that's all we needed. Hit OK. And now what happened, it added a name DB, it added a. It looks a little weird to me, uh, but it is what it is. I would probably do it using a CNAME and not with a record in this case, but let's see what happens. All right, so we are done with that. Okay, so now it's time to test the private zones. Okay, you can use the ping command. So what we will do, let's log into my VM01 at this time. So what you will need to do, go back to your resource group. So let's just open another tab actually, and let's look for the virtual machines, and only those two are running. VM1, here's the public IP address. I'm gonna copy, oh, actually just open this one up. Okay, what I'll do here is a UC button to connect. I'm gonna connect and then say RDP. It should download the correct file for me. Just open with RDP and connect, and here more details. I'm gonna use a different account and I'm gonna call it student and password, and that should let me log in. It didn't let me. Let me try again. There we go. So now we have it, and say yes to the validation, and now we are inside this particular virtual machine, which is VM1. All right, let's see what's going on in this virtual machine. So while this is going on, what I'll do, I'll also go to the other machine. Okay, do the same thing. Okay, connect RDP and download this file, open with this, and then so details, printers, say connect, and then more details, different account. So let's just log in, and that should connect me to the other machine, which is the VM2. So let's just keep both of them side by side if I can. So this and that, they're over here. Now give me 1 second. All right, the testing that we really want to do is this is VM01 you see at the very top, and this is the VM02 that you also see at the very top. So we are inside the servers. I'm going to close this too, and let's just start with one of the servers. Open up our PowerShell. Let's see if it brings up PowerShell. I'm just going to run it as an administrator, and over here as well I'm gonna do the same thing. Open up my PowerShell. Uh-oh. Okay, so run it as administrator. What your ICMP packets are not enabled by default. So what first we need to do, we need to disable the firewall so that it allows the ping command, and that is the command that you need to run. So just go back to both machines now. Okay, so here's my, where's my PowerShell? There's my PowerShell. Go up, paste the command, hit enter. Do the same thing in other machine as well. If it takes the command, it's not taking the command for whatever reason. So this one went properly, so maybe here edit then paste, still didn't take it. Let me copy it one more time. Copy, maybe the paste works on the, yeah, there we go. So hit enter. So now what we just did, we have told the firewall in both machines, hey, please allow the connection. Okay, so now to do the testing and make sure your DNS is working, you really have to ping the other machine using the fully qualified domain name that you have, which is a private one, and see if it's resolving properly or not. So in here, real quick, if I do host name, let's see what we get. So we get my VM02, same thing over here, host name, my VM01. So if I just do ping my VM02,
looks look at that. It's resolving right now. It's got my VM02, then a weird name, then BX, then internal, then cloud app.net. Man, that's really weird. So let's try something else. Try say ping, then my VM2, and our private DNS zone is what? Is private dot cloud security.com, and this one my VM02 is what I think I need to provide. Make sure that that's working or not. Then come back to the end and look at that. That did work. So over here, I'm going to ping, and instead of using this whole weird name, now what we are doing really, we are saying ping my VM2 with my private DNS name, hit enter, and it's resolving just fine. So we have just proved that our DNS name resolution is working great. The other thing that we have done, we created a DB, and let's just test if the DB one is also working good, and that is also working just beautifully. So we have proven that being by host names, they're also working just fine. So that's how you would implement your private DNS zone. Hope you like the video. You can do some further testing, do the same thing from the VM2 and verify that it's working for this machine as well, and you're golden. Okay, so now you know how to do this. So enjoy and subscribe, like the video, and leave your comments. Thank you.